Good evening and welcome to Hearts Live, the only programme on your telly dedicated to bring you all the news and interviews from Tynecastle. Each week we'll bring you the lowdown on all things Hearts. And joining me tonight is ex-Hearts skipper and current Cowdenbeath boss Craig Levine. We'll hear from Craig in a moment. But first, on Monday's show we gave you the chance to win £100 worth of vouchers from Marks & Spencer's. The question that we asked was, which team did Hearts beat in the quarter-finals of the Scottish League Cup? The answer was, of course, Ross County. The winner of the vouchers is Mrs Christie from Mountcastle Place, Edinburgh. Well done. Here's what's coming up on the show tonight. Saints go marching into the final of the League Cup at Hearts' expense. Jockey Scott on how tomorrow's game will feel like a cup final. And John Colquhoun on life as a jam tart. Well, again tonight we have another great competition for you to win. We have a meal for two at the fabulous Jack's Lunch restaurant in the High Street of Edinburgh. All you have to do to win is answer this simple question. Which capital club did Jockey Scott once manage? A clue is it wasn't Hearts. So give us a call now on 0660 010 880. That's 0660 010 880. And calls will cost no more than 50p and lines will close at midnight. We'll pick a winner at random and let you know on Monday's show who the winner is. But first tonight, and we turn our attention to the League Cup semi-final game against St Johnstone. It was a game that could have well and truly kick-started Hearts' season had they won, as it gave them the chance to replay this year's Scottish Cup final against Rangers. But ex-Hearts boss Sandy Clark, with his new club St Johnstone, also wanted to take his team to their first cup final in 29 years.
Here we go again.
Hearts went to Easter Road on Tuesday hoping for their first win in 11 games, but it was clear from the start that their dreams were not to come true. The Jambos were without Gary McSwegan, who was cup-tied, but Stefan Adam made a welcomed return after missing the last two games through illness. Thomas Flogel also made his return after recovering from a head knock he took at Ibrox. As for St Johnstone, they kept the same threatening side which started Saturday's 2-2 draw with Kilmarnock, and it proved to be tactically right. Gilles Rousset had no chance in stopping the goals from St Johnstone when Dazovic scored in the 41st minute, with Preston scoring only minutes later. In the second half, Hearts had it all to do, and although second half substitute Thomas Flogel had a couple of shots, Hearts couldn't make it back into the game. Hearts were finally knocked out of the competition when St Johnstone sealed their place in the final with a third goal from Maboyle in the 87th minute. The final score, St Johnstone 3, Hearts 0. Well, to say Jim Jeffries was gutted after the game doesn't do justice to the mood he was in. If ever a Hearts manager had felt he'd been let down by a team's performance, this was it. There's no doubt that you want to turn things around. Do you think that the players are disappointed enough now to get back and get into the game again?
Well, I would find it very hard to believe if they weren't disappointed. And I think one or two of them have got very little time to put it right, because I ain't going to sit back and just go in, week out with the level of performances that we're getting. And whether you want to say injuries that or not, you know, that's just excuses. You know, there's enough quality players there to put up a better show than we did, and if it doesn't happen, it's getting to the stage now where we're really going to make the changes and at least get a team out there who are going to put up a better or apply themselves better than the players that are doing it at the moment.
Well, 5 months ago, when Hearts won the Scottish Cup for the first time in 36 years and finished third in the league, the future looked bright for Jim Jeffries and his team. At the moment, though, dark clouds have gathered over Tynecastle, and it's going to take hugely improved league performances and results to blow them away. I spoke to Paul Sinclair of the Daily Record and Rob Robertson of the Herald on the current situation at the club. Well, Jim Jeffries had the players in the dressing room for a long time after the match. What did he have to say to you about the performance?
What I can repeat was really quite derogatory for the players. I've never heard him so outspoken against his own team before. He said he didn't even imply, he said there were going to be changes. He said he may have been too loyal in the past to some of these players, but that loyalty was going to stop right away. It was time now for changes. He felt that a lot of the players may be living on their own publicity from last season, and I've been thinking to themselves, well, we can do this, we can stroll through it, and he said, well, it's stopping, and it's stopping now.
That's 3 wins in 11 league games compared with 9 at this point last season. What's gone wrong? I mean, it's an incredible difference.
Good players don't become bad ones overnight. Good managers don't become bad managers overnight. This is a very, very bad dip in Hearts' form. But Jim Jeffries has been bottom of the table before with Laszlo, the same squad, and Laszlo, the same squad, then went on to win the Scottish Cup the next season. So I don't think it's time to press panic and say that everything is going wrong at Tynecastle. And it's a serious position for the club. But at the same time, I think it's too early to start pressing the panic button.
Jim Jeffries had a real go at his players last night and kept us all waiting for about 40 minutes. He talks about ringing the changes. How do you now think he goes about doing this?
It's not the biggest squad. He's on record as saying it's the best squad he's ever had at Tynecastle in his 3.5 years. But it's still not very big. So, and he also has just bought McSwiggan. He got Presley in the close season. He's got the Frenchman Guerin. He's got one young Wanjo in there as well. So he has bought a few players. But by the same token, he can shuffle the pack. But I don't really think the money's there to create more signings for him. So I think he would really have to really call on the players to deliver more. I think it could be taken as a warning shot across their bows. This is it, guys. This is your last chance. No more. It changes at Dundee on Saturday, or else.
Well, how do you now think Hearts kickstart their season?
I think there will be changes. He talked about the half a dozen of his ground staff could have done a better job. Well, I think some of those guys might get a chance. And I think, to be perfectly honest, the way results have been going, even if those guys don't deliver the victories, at the same time, the Hearts support would be a lot more pleased to see 11 Hearts players who are really busting a gut for the cause and playing for the jersey, rather than what they've had to watch with some players off form, some players just appearing not to put in the effort. I think that will be the way forward, and they'll let the bigger names sit in the stand and watch the younger guys playing in their jerseys and let them reflect on why they're sitting in the stand and not playing in the Hearts first team.
Well, Craig, first of all, thanks very much for joining me tonight. It's obvious we saw Jim Jeffries there, it's obvious he's not happy with his players' performance at the moment, isn't it?
That's an understatement, isn't it? Well, he's every right not to be happy. To go from, as I said to you earlier on, Mando having a chat there, that the last time I saw Hearts play over 90 minutes was the cup final last season. And to watch them then, and to watch the team that played on Tuesday, you wouldn't have known that there were any of the players playing that played in the cup final.
What do you think's gone wrong? How do you think, I mean, as Paul Sinclair said there, good players don't become bad players overnight.
No, they don't, but confidence is a huge thing in football, and last season the Hearts were carrying everything before them, and every game that they went into they believed that they could win. And when your confidence gets a dent, like the players at Hearts have recently, and also Jim was sort of dismissing the fact that he had injuries. I think it is an excuse. Jim doesn't think so. But I think when you lose players of the quality of Colin Cameron, and you lost Stevie Fulton for 4 or 5 weeks there, Neil McCann's out, when things are going against you and the chips are down, these guys can sometimes pull you out of hole.
Do you think, as Jim threatened, that he might give youngsters a chance, do you think that's something he could do to turn it around?
I don't think he has many idle threats, Jim. I think if he says he's going to make changes, he will make changes. And I think what he's looking for, he's looking to shuffle the pack and hopefully strike something that brings a little bit of confidence back, or a little bit of belief back into the team. And if bringing new players in does that, then it'll have served its purpose.
Did you ever experience anything like that at your time at Hearts, where you maybe perhaps had a good run and then suddenly things just went wrong?
Yeah, as I say, confidence is everything. I mean, I played in Hearts teams where we knew we couldn't get beat, and other times you played in Hearts teams where things just didn't go for you, results weren't going for you, you were getting injuries all the time, you couldn't put the same team out 2 weeks in a row. And these things do dent the confidence of players, and I think that is what's happened at Tynecastle. There's players playing there just now, Paul Ritchie and David Weir, to name but two, who last season looked so solid, and things have just, this season seem to have disappeared, and they don't play with the same confidence, the same aggression, the same belief that they did last season.
Okay, Keith, thanks for the moment. Well, the half-time whistle's gone, so it's time for Craig and I to have our half-time team talk. But be sure to join us in the second half, when we'll hear from Dundee boss Jockey Scott and from Hearts hero John Colquhoun.
I would like to see the club picking something up, and I hope it's the first of many, because I do believe that once you break that barrier, then it is easier than just to keep you going on, and psychologically you can do it, and you're stronger for that.
Hearts are a very good side, and they showed last season how competitive they are, and the run that they had, and taking the Old Firm to very close to the championship.
Craig and I have had our half-time team talk, so let's kick off the second half. One man who knew all about Hearts Hibs derbies in his time was former Hibs boss Jocky Scott. The derbies don't bring back happy memories for him, but now with new club Dundee, he hopes to readdress the balance. Hearts will be crossing more than one bridge this weekend if they manage to put one over the Dark Blues. Newly promoted Dundee didn't get off to the most promising of starts, and in their first 3 games they failed to put a point on the score sheet. A draw against Celtic bolstered the confidence for them to go to Tynecastle and take all 3 points in September.
It was a turning point because it was our first victory, but maybe the turning point was the week previous to that with Celtic, where we had got a point against Celtic at Dens here and scored our first goal. So when we went to Tynecastle, we were on a high, and we were confident we could do well, and fortunately we did, and we played well that day and got a very good result.
That result was to prove to be Dundee's first competitive win since April the 4th. This absence of victories was beginning to take its toll on the fans, who were only too relieved at Hearts' expense to secure a victory. When Jocky Scott draws up his team list for the weekend, he will be without the hero of that afternoon, Darius Adamchuk, after a 3-match ban for poor discipline.
Unfortunately, we have Darius Adamchuk suspended at the moment, which is a big blow to us. We have 1 or 2 injuries to Lee Madison. The big goalkeeper, Robert Douglas, has been troubled with an injury, which has not prevented him playing, but it has prevented him doing certain things. So, over the piece, we've been lucky with injuries and suspensions. But I know that's going to catch up with us sometime.
For a certain young man, it will be an emotionally fraught game, visiting Dens Park for the first time since he departed 2 years ago, ex-Dundee star Jim Hamilton.
Obviously, Neil McCann at the moment is injured, who is a big threat to play against. Jim Hamilton coming back to his old haunting ground could be a threat. It was always a goal threat, and he would want to do well in front of his old supporters. But they've got very good players. Stevie Fulton at Miller Park is having a good time of it, and they're very well organised in defence and with a good goalkeeper. So all round they're a good team, but it's just up to us to make sure they don't play on the day.
Dundee are 1 point behind Hearts and will be G'd up so as to get out of the danger zone at the bottom. But whoever gets the trick or treat will all depend on the day.
It just depends on the day. I mean, and it depends on how we play. I mean, Hearts are a very good side, and they showed last season how competitive they are, and the run that they had, and taking the Old Firm to very close to the championship. So we know it's going to be a very difficult game, and regardless of which players that Jim Jeffries puts on the pitch. So, but we'll be ready for it, and hopefully we can get the same result as we did the last game.
Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." This, Jocky Scott feels, is killing the essence of the game, and the SPL isn't necessarily the cure.
On a personal note, I don't see any real improvement on the pitch in terms of the quality of play, and that simply comes down to the fact of fear. I mean, the clubs, and I include myself in that, the fear of getting relegated is a big thing, and the players feel it. They don't go out and express themselves properly the way they should do. And if you're winning a game, maybe by the odd goal with 10 minutes to go, the worry is that you lose a goal and lose the couple of points, or if you're drawing a game and you lose a goal, you lose whole 3 points. And the tendency is to sit back and try and defend rather than going and trying to add. And I certainly think that in order for us to get rid of the fear element, we've got to expand the league a wee bit. to allow players and allow coaches and managers to express themselves on the park.
Well, Craig, I'm sure you'll agree that the nerves will be jangling in the Hearts dressing room before tomorrow's game.
I think they will, but I think it's a chance for Hearts to bounce back right away. And if Jim does make the changes that he says he's going to do, then a chance for some people to come into the team and stake a claim for continue running the team.
Do you think that they'll come out fighting tomorrow?
Well, I hope so, and I think every Hearts fan hopes that they'll do that as well.
Do you think that this will be a real test for Hearts with the way that Dundee are playing just now?
Yeah, Dundee struggled early on in the season and they've picked up some good results recently, but by all accounts we're fortunate to beat Dunfermline midweek. So I don't think that they'll be playing with total confidence, and I think the two teams will be a little bit nervous about this game.
Do you think that, I mean, Jockey Scott just talked about starting the season, as you just mentioned, starting it slowly. Do you think he's managed to turn it around quite well?
The results have turned around. I haven't seen Dundee play this season, but the results seem to indicate that they have turned things around.
Okay, Craig, thanks for the moment. Well, if you were asked to name a Hearts winger with pace, dribbling skills and good for a few goals, we would all automatically think of Neil McCann. But if you're a bit older than me, you'll remember Neil's carbon copy, John Colquhoun. John joined Hearts in May 1985 after an unsettled period with Celtic, where they couldn't find a fulfilling role for him. Celtic's loss, though, turned out to be most certainly Hearts' gain.
If you can't spell it, then here's what it says. Hearts, hearts, glory.
John Colquhoun made his professional debut at Celtic in 1983. It was a dream for Colquhoun, who at the time was perceived as one of the most dangerous strikers in the Premier Division.
Oh, it's fantastic because it's a cliche, but I'd always supported Celtic as a boy, and all of a sudden from going from being a supporter to actually playing and being the centre of that attention was absolutely fantastic, and there really is nothing like it. Any supporter that follows a team, if you can just imagine turning out for that team, it's just fantastic.
Colquhoun thoroughly enjoyed his time at Celtic and had only one word to describe it.
Short. It was very short. It only lasted 18 months. David Hay bought me and sold me, but these things happen in football. I was disappointed to leave, and I did genuinely think I was moving down the way to play for Hearts, but it turned out to be the best move of my career. It was fantastic. Nearly won the League and Cup double in my first season there, and we were all young boys growing up together. There was myself, Gary Mackay, John Robertson, Craig Levein, Kenny Black. There's loads of us, and it was really an exciting time to be at Tynecastle.
John admired the great team spirit that was at Hearts when he played with the likes of Gary Mackay, John Robertson and Craig Levein. He believes that spirit is the part of the reason the club has achieved success.
It's got to be there. You don't win the Scottish Cup without that being there. Hearts had a fantastic year last season, and I think the collective spirit was definitely there. This season is more difficult because you're trying to build on the back of what they did last season, and you have one or two injuries and one or two things that go wrong, and off the field, distractions. The Mallorca thing, Hearts were fully entitled to appeal, and they really should have won the appeal. There was a precedent there, and I think it's a disgraceful decision that they didn't. But that's a distraction that sort of takes away from what you're doing every week in the park, and it's a difficult season. But no, I think this collective spirit is still there.
John played with many men who are now regarded as legends, but which of them did he admire?
I admire Craig Levein for battling against his injury and trying to come back, and although it was ultimately unsuccessful, he showed a lot of courage to do that. I admire Gary Mackay, John Robertson for their playing ability, and also for the leadership they gave off the field, and the commitment to the Hearts team and club and off the field, because I think that's just important as sometimes some things that happen on the field, and Gary and John and myself, Craig, went to a lot of schools and did a lot of sort of community work, and I think that's really important, and I really think that football's got to do more of that.
Which players do you admire in the current Hearts squad?
Gilles Doucet is a terrific goalkeeper and also a genuinely nice guy, and Stefan Adam, who's come in after I left, seems to be a really honest human guy, because a lot of the foreigners that come in can sometimes be temperamental or a bit stroppy, but these two are absolutely fantastic men, and I think that's what's helped Hearts there. But no, there's still a lot of people I admire. David Weir, who showed great determination to come and develop late in his career. Colin Cameron, who I think probably Hearts have missed more than anybody over the last few years, and his miss to the team has been incredible. But there's right through the team, Gary Locke, Gary Naismith, a terrific young lad. I really do hope he goes on to establish himself in the international scene.
Hearts' Scottish Cup success of last season was something that thousands of Hearts fans had been waiting for, but it was also something that John Colquhoun felt he missed out on as a player.
It's a failure of my professional career that I didn't manage to bring back a trophy to Tynecastle. We had great times, as I said, but that's no compensation for the supporters when we didn't win the trophy. But I think we gave a lot of people a lot of pleasure, and we've got to take that out of it. But yeah, it was a disappointment that we never won anything, and as I say, that's why I was delighted to see the club picking something up, and I hope it's the first of many, because I do believe that once you break that barrier, then it is easier than just to keep you going on, and psychologically you can do it, and you're stronger for that.
Although John feels winning trophies would have enhanced his career, he looks back on it all with fond memories.
These are great times. I can't have one memory, but it's just sort of the whole time. It's sort of halcyon days indeed.
Craig, would you agree you've got a fan there?
That's my golfing partner, isn't it?
How did you rate John as a player?
Yeah, he's a smashing player. People talk about Neil McCann having great abilities. The difference between him and John Colquhoun is John Colquhoun for me was a player who performed week in and week out. And I think once Neil gets that into his game, I think you can compare him with John, but at this minute in time, John's consistency edges it for me, I think.
What do you think were John's greatest qualities as a player?
I mean, he was a tremendous dribbler, he had good speed, he always chipped in his share of goals, he worked back the park to try and help out. I mean, he was a good all-round player. I mean, he was an internationalist as well. I mean, he's had a great career.
At the time that you and John and Craig Levein were there, Craig Levein, that's you, at the time you and Gary Mackay as well, you seem to have great camaraderie at that time. Do you think that that's still there in the squad now?
Yeah, I think it is. I think we had bad times as a team as well, but it's a matter of knuckling down and drawing strength from each other. And I think that's what the current Hearts side will have to do.
Would you, I mean, you mentioned that Neil McCann's probably not up there at the moment, but do you think Neil McCann could go on to be as big a player as
Yeah, that's the point I'm making, but he has to be more consistent. He has to turn in the performances week in, week out, and he has to get into sort of 8, 9, 10 goals a season, even though he's playing wide, to push his place for this international setup.
Now, briefly, Craig, you had good and bad times when you were at Hearts. As captain, if you were captain now, how would you lift the morale in the squad?
Yeah, I'd take all the boys off to the pub, to be honest.
Listen, Craig, thanks very much for joining me tonight. Well, sadly, the full-time whistle has gone, but don't forget we'll be back on Monday at the same time, 6:30, when we'll look back at the game against Dundee, along with all the usual features. In the meantime, my thanks to Craig for being my guest, and if you want to get to the heart of Tynecastle, then keep watching Hearts Live.
This is my story. This is my song.